recommended game of the week. The recommended game of the week is a family-friendly game we think you should add to your collection, and it passes our stringent criteria for quality and content. This week's game is Alhambra by Queen Games. Doug, give us the stats.
Published in 2003, the designer is Dirk Henn. The art is by Jorg Esselborn, Joe Hartvig, Patricia Limburger, and Christoph Tisch. 2 to 6 players, 45 to 60 minutes, ages 8 and up. The same on BGG. The complexity scale is a 2.1 out of 5, according to the Board Game Geek users. And this was a 2003 Spiel des Jahres winner. So in Alhambra, players are acquiring buildings to place within their Alhambra complex. Those buildings are represented by tiles that you are going to be placing around a central fountain or your central fountain. On a player's turn, they can take money from the money market, or they can purchase. They can do one of 3 things. They can either take money from the money market, purchase a building from the building market, or remove or swap building tiles that they've placed in their Alhambra or their reserve. You kind of have a reserve off to the side. So if you get a building and you don't want to place it right away, you can put it in reserve and save it later. That may come up because one of the ways that you can score points, there are 3 scoring rounds in the game. One of the ways that you can score points is by the outer wall perimeter. You're going to score points for how long that wall is. So there might be a tile that you really want that you don't take, and you put it in your reserve until you kind of open up spot to fit that one in. There are 4 types of currency in the game that you're using to buy the tiles. There are 4 different colors.
And shapes.
The money that you're using to buy the tiles, if you spend the exact amount of change, the exact dollar that's printed on the tile, you can take another turn. So you're rewarded for paying the exact amount of each building tile. There are going to be 3 scoring rounds in the game, and when those cards come out, they're hidden in the money stack. You are then going to score majorities. So whoever has the most white buildings, whoever has the most green buildings is going to score. And as the game goes on, there's also a second place and potentially a third place, depending on the number of players. That is the crux of the game.
You want to talk about the walls, too? Did you mention that?
Yeah, the
Was
walls.
I not listening?
Yeah, I think you zoned out there.
Okay.
Yep, the walls are an outer. Those happen every scoring round, and you score based on how long your wall is on the
longest
outside.
Contiguous wall, yep.
And the player with the highest score wins. So that's it. It's pretty simple. When you're taking money from the market, you can take up to $5 or more as a single card. So the denominator,
you could take a 2, and a 1, or a 3 and a 2, or if there's a $9 and $8 out there, you can just grab the
just
one $8
yeah.
or $9. Yep.
So it's interesting of where people are taking the money, because those lower values are better for getting the exact change,
yep.
right? So there's a commodity there on getting that low value money. However,
because when you go to trade them in, if you're exact, it's almost like getting an extra turn. So sometimes the first time I played, I didn't connect that those $1 and $2 are actually quite valuable, because then if I'm going to buy a tile for 7 or 9, I now have that flexibility to use those $1 and $2 so that it is exact and allows my turn to continue, I should say.
And then the tiles are not replaced until the end of your turn. So theoretically, if you had all the proper currency, you could buy 4 building tiles and take money in a single turn.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever done that?
I got close last game. I think I did 3, but the hard part is that I acquired 2 buildings that were completely useless to me. So it's a fine line of
then they were just clogging.
You're trying to increase your majority in the tile color, the building color, but sometimes the wall configuration doesn't work with what you're building, and so it's a fine line of what's valuable and when. What do you like about the game, Michael?
I like the puzzle of the game with the interaction. I think that as I played this game, especially, we played a few times in a short period of time, I started to realize that there were pieces of this game that are in other games that I really enjoy. For example, the randomness of when that scoring round is going to occur. That's something that I really like about a game that I've played recently, Meeples and Monsters, right? Where you don't know when the round is going to end. What are you going to draw? Oh, we're scoring now. So that little bit of tension that builds in the game, that it works as almost an artificial clock, right? Or not an artificial clock, but a clock within the game while I'm working on a puzzle. The other thing that I really like about it too, it's very easy to see what other people are doing. And so it is one of those where I can focus on what I'm doing and look across the table and see, oh, there's the purple, there's the brown, and try to kind of keep up with my neighbor and others at the table. Not a lot of puzzly type games am I able to do that, and this is a game that allows for that.
Yeah, and that's one thing to piggyback on the randomness of the scoring tile thing is the 2 scoring cards are dispersed in the money deck. So that's when the first 2 scoring rounds happen. The third and final scoring round happens when the buildings in the building market are unable to be filled. So when you can't refill the market, that triggers the end game.
What do you like, Doug?
I mean, I think this game is extremely easy to teach and start playing in no time.
Oh, yes.
It's a fast setup game. There's not a ton of setup. I feel like because of that, this works in a K-12, homeschooling, library, family game nights equally. I can see them working on all of those.
When was the last? All right, so we played it, what was it, a month, 6 weeks ago. We'll just peg it at that. When had you played it before that? Was it
7 years ago?
And you
was the last
got
time.
it to the table, opened up the box, and we started playing.
Yeah.
So that really says
with
a lot.
no rules refresh. I don't think I read the rules again at all.
Yeah, very similar to Azul. That way, I feel like that the systems within the game work so well together that just by seeing it, it's an instant review. Set the game up, and now I'm ready to tell people how it works.
Yeah, the other thing I like is that the choices are always interesting throughout the game, whether you're going to, do I want that building? Am I going to take money? What you're going to do is always interesting every time your turn comes around. But the other thing is that good things are always happening. Every turn is satisfying.
Most of the time.
Well, no, I mean...
you.
Yeah, you're either getting free money or you're buying a building, so...
There's not a wasted turn.
Those things are always happening. Like, something always is going to be good. Even if you're reshuffling your Alhambra, where's something that bad that happens?
Well, no, but to say that it's good, I'm not saying that it's bad, but maybe I want it to be better. Maybe I'm just not optimizing to the level I want to. But you're right.
But
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Every turn is a gain. It's a positive. It's, whether it's a good or you're always gaining something, whether you're gaining money or a building tile, or maximizing the points in your. Yeah. It's not necessarily even wasted. They're always positive. They're always working towards you. Now, if you don't feel like you're playing as well as you could, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the choices are always moving you forward. There's no, now's the turn that everybody has to pay taxes and everybody loses $5.
Sure.
It's always a gain, which I like. I tend to like those games in general.
Because of how it progresses and builds and unfolds?
Well, it just feels like you're always making progress.
Okay.
You're always moving forward, which is a confidence builder, I think.
Yeah.
I love that there's 3 levers to manage. Your money, the way that what buildings you're actually buying, and the locations that those buildings are going in. And just kind of the way that those things fluctuate around. You start the game and you're like, woohoo, my Alhambra's all open. I can put any tiles anywhere. And then a little bit later, it's like, I really have to be choosy about which tiles I'm bringing in. And, that type of thing. So I love that transition.
Well, and being able to take a turn to swap the perfect tile in, right?
Yeah.
Because I might buy a tile thinking that eventually I'll be able to fit this in. But then that end of game, when you take the entire turn just to place a tile, there's a little bit of a pain point there as well. Yeah, good.
The only concern I have on this one is that and now my version is not the newest version, but the artwork is nothing to write home about. However, 2 caveats to that. One, it's extremely functional, and this is a game that on the surface, I would think that you would have a problem with the colors.
Me personally?
Yes. Yeah, or any color deficient person that
Yeah.
was not an issue at all.
Yeah.
The number of games
this is not Calico.
No, the number of games that you and I have played where it's like, is this purple, is this brown, or whatever.
I didn't ask once because the decoding
which is crazy.
Great. And to just dig in on that a little bit, because you brought it up here, the symbols are very clear. So it's not as if I'm looking at a circle and an oval trying to figure out which is a blue circle, which is a purple oval. No. You've got like a hexagon with the spiky things, whatever that's called, a symbol that's very 2003-ish, and squares and circles. And so the symbology, the iconography all works together. There's a little bit of extra processing there, but not where it slows down the game.
No.
Not where I feel like I am slowing down the game or my fun factor's down. The only concern that I have, and I wanted to bring this up here, we haven't talked about it offline, it's not 45 to 60 minutes, is it? Didn't this play in 25 to 30 minutes? When I log my plays, I've started to log time, but I don't do it all the time. But boy, seeing 45 to 60 minutes,
I mean, I guess
this was more of like we played
a 3-player, we played 6 players, maybe.
Did we just play 3-player and 2-player?
We played 4,
3, 4, and 3. Yeah.
So
once we start to approach that hour, that 60-minute, I really like to put a disclaimer out to our listeners.
Yeah,
especially not just for people who are playing in a school where there's bells and this or that, but my 13-year-old, 1 hour is the limit. At that point, Josie is saying, I'm taking a break. I'll come back tomorrow. So it didn't feel like that. It really felt more like a 30-minute. And so I just wondered how much of that has changed over time. But anyway,
I don't think so. I think that's
You think it is 45 to 60 minutes?
No, I think it's shorter once people know how to play it, and it's not a heavy mental clogger, so maybe with the 6 players, but I don't know.
This game stands out for me. It does same thing that Azul, same thing that some of those other puzzly games. It's just a wonderful little system that I enjoyed playing and would like to play again, and you want to introduce to new people. So.
Yeah. All right, so on the surface, may not seem like this is an educational game or that there's educational components in there. Michael and I disagree. We both assembled a list of 5 skills that we think your kids and students can pull out of a game like this. Michael, what do you got?
My core skill is problem solving, a game that rewards players for finding solutions to simple or complex problems. That board is a changing. It is changing all the time. And Doug talked about earlier in the segment where it starts off so open and free, and I have so many choices. And as a lot of great games do, boom, it just zooms in to, oh man, I only have 2 choices, and I don't really like either one the best. But which one of these 2 choices will set me up for a better choice the next round? And okay, I'll draw the currency. And so just solving that problem, it's not so much early game. Early game, it's a challenge, but definitely mid-game, from the time that first scoring round happens till the end, it's just one little problem after another to solve.
Yeah. My core skill is observation, a game that rewards careful watching of details and behaviors in order to understand and arrive at a judgment. And I think this comes in with every time new money comes out into that money market, that row, whenever new buildings come out, looking over and seeing how many purple buildings your opponents have and whether you need to get that new one that just came out there. So you kind of have to have your head on a swivel and see what's going on. It's like, oh, that green building just came out, but I can't use that because of the walls. How would I, so there's a lot of looking around and noticing, I think, in this game, and it's manageable. We talk about a lot of times there's some games get to a level where they're so complex. It's like, I got enough mental energy spent just trying to keep track of my own board. I'm not going to be able to see what Michael's doing. This one, you are able to, and it's necessary to kind of keep an eye on what everybody's doing.
That's so good. We've talked about games in the past where you kind of see 6 moves ahead, and then what I often do is forget about and can't actually trace back what I was going to do to initiate the 6 moves ahead. So I just quit. No, Alhambra doesn't get in the way like that.
Yeah.
And that's where my skill that leads into the observation is competition. When you brought up purple tile, well, let me start with our definition of competition is a game that develops healthy competitive habits as two or more parties compete for a goal or a reward that isn't shared. So what I noticed in playing this game, Doug was sitting to my left and another friend of mine sitting to my right, and Doug was buying cards out of where do the is everything called the marketplace?
There's a money market and a building market.
The building market, right? So I wasn't getting the building markets that I wanted, and then I noticed mid game I was competing for the purple tiles, and it was 2 and 3, and it was kind of the competition in this game is very observational. You have to see what the other people are doing I have to see that, and that informs my decisions and what I'm going to do in a way that very much a live action sports event does.
Yeah.
So that's my second skill is competition. I have a lot of business skills to churn through.
Yeah,
here,
well, it's
Doug.
interesting because this is a game that I enjoy even when I lose.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care that I've lost. And those ideas of paying for stuff, I'll get to that in a little bit, but there are some very satisfying turns on this. I think in observation and in competition, I think the big one in this game as well is tactical thinking, a game that challenges players to make decisions based on currently available and frequently changing information. The building tiles are changing. The money that's available to get is changing. And what you thought you were going to do when that new building comes up, and you're like, I have exact change to buy that tile right now
Cha-ching!
that I was one turn ago was not able to do. So now do I want to do that? Do I think somebody else is going to take it? Should I still do what I was originally going to do? And I think you need to be aware, observing what happens, and when to kind of pivot and pounce are a big part of this game.
And that's designed. It's not luck, right? This game is designed for players to have that experience. You're not lucking into that, correct? Being able to think tactically, you get rewarded for it. I'm just thinking of some of the skills we've rattled off here. We've got tactical thinking with competition and observation. If those three are working together, you're going to have a great experience. It's not like I just show up and it's my turn and I had a magical fourth turn in one, right?
Yeah. And I think that ability to, like I said, seize those moments because you don't know what building tiles. There is luck in drawing out which building tiles and which cards of the shuffled deck are going to show up. You can't control that. However, you can plan and be able to be flexible, right? That's what we always talk about is like the tactical thinking is that ability to be flexible, to pivot. It's like, how am I setting myself up to capitalize on things that may fall into my lap? So
good.
That's my number 2 there, tactical thinking.
I've got 3 really good skills. I just don't know which one to go to next. I think I'm going to go to spatial perception, a game that strengthens a player's understanding of the spatial relationships with the objects in their environment and themselves. This is a game that I think if I have more repeated plays, I will get better at setting up my Alhambra, my city, whatever the thing is actually called. Sorry for not knowing. But when I see that, when I feel that in a game of I, as an adult human, am getting better at setting up and mapping and planning 2 or 3 moves ahead, that tells me that younger humans, adolescents, are also going to be able to develop some of that spatial perception. I think it's a pretty obvious skill, but the way that it works in here with the wall fitting together, sometimes you have to be able to give up a wall, and I'm not. I'm going to stick to it, and my city will be fully enclosed, and I might finish dead last, but so there's a lot there with that.
One of the things of those walls is whenever you put a new tile down, a virtual person needs to be able to walk from that building back to your central fountain.
Not a virtual person like in Zoom, but if a make-believe person were in the magical circle walking around.
Yeah,
correct?
I feel like you're getting into the metaverse on that one. So you have to have a pathway back to the main fountain. And my next skill is actually spatial perception as well. And I think what's interesting about this one, a lot of times when we talk about spatial perception, we're talking about the actual tile location and putting them down on the board, which certainly is in this game. But the interesting part is not a lot of those games have looking at that building main board on the building market and having to mentally visualize where I can fit that tile into my Alhambra.
Yeah.
It's that pre-visualization that needs to happen of the spatial perception in addition to actually then placing the tile.
Right.
And it's not like you get to pick up that tile and put it on your board and test it out to see where it fits. It stays on there until you buy it.
And everything must be turned the exact same way.
Yes,
so that
you
that
can't
turning
rotate
feet,
it.
No.
Yeah.
It's set. Yeah, that's good.
All right, what's next for you?
My next skill is risk management. I like I said, I have a few skills here, and I'm not going to be able to bring them all to the table. But risk management is a game in which players must identify, evaluate, and prioritize options to reduce the impact of unfortunate events or risks. And we put this skill in our business category. And when I played this game, the decision that I was faced with, it's a different type of risk management. It's, do I just get the money right now, or can I get that? Will that building still be there when it comes back to me? It's almost like, which one of my systems am I building right now? Because you can't do all things at once. I can't get the building and get the money, but if I go after the money, there's a good chance that that building's not going to be there, and I can't give any of that away. I still have to act very decisively at the table so that other people aren't like, oh, Michael might want that building that's a white 6 over there. So, and I really enjoyed that. You and I played golf yesterday, and I can confirm that, once again, I am the worst golfer alive, and now you can confirm that as well. But I think it's I don't want to make the comparison to that, but it's of, oh, should I take this shot? Shouldn't I take this shot? Where am I going to go? But this game has those high five moments of, where it's just like, oh, yeah, it all worked out. Look at that. And maybe I'm just high fiving myself and other people at the table aren't happy for me. But I see that in Alhambra.
Yeah, I see that as well. I think the next one I have is very interesting, and that's resource management, a game that boosts a player's capacity to efficiently and effectively oversee available assets. Normally, when you think about resource management, it's usually one of those things like, I'm trading in 2 stone and 1 wood, and I'm getting this, and doing that type of conversion.
Yep.
But this, where you're managing your money and those 4 currencies, and the idea of being able to use them efficiently because you're rewarded with extra turns when you do, is something that's very unique to this game, and certainly one that came out in 2003. The fact that this is in that game that I have not seen repeated is very interesting to me. That, like, okay, yes, you're rewarded, and you don't get change.
No.
There's no change. So if the building costs...
you overpay, you overpaid.
If it costs 7 and I have to use a 9 for it, yeah, I get the building, but I'm not getting $2 back, and my turn is over. So it rewards you to be efficient, but when to pounce on that it changes,
That's good.
And to your point with the risk management of, are you letting that opportunity go away before it happens? So that's mine, resource management.
Yeah, I had that as well. And so I think we're wrapped up on skills.
Yep, I got one more left.
Go ahead.
And that's personal responsibility, a game that highlights the cause and effect nature of a player's actions and related results. We talked about this as the game tightens as you go along. When you place a tile down in your building, it stays there. And taking the turn to swap or replace is not ideal. It's
that's your whole turn.
You can use it, and it can be very beneficial if you use it properly. However, in most cases, it's not. And so that idea of, like, I've really built myself into a corner here.
But you might not have a choice.
And you have to live with that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that has that right level of permanence to the game.
Yeah.
That's not, it doesn't bring it to a negative level.
Mm-hmm.
It just really makes you think, like, next time I play this game, I need to be aware of how I'm boxing myself in here.
Now, Doug, I don't want to digress too much on this, but speaking of boxes, there are a lot of different types of boxes of Alhambra out there. This game's almost 20 years old. There are so many different versions and so many different languages. Is there anything that our listeners need to know about the game that we haven't covered? Because I don't know if we're going to get back to Alhambra again.
No, I mean, there's the original version, and some of them come with little expansion modules, which is awesome. You can get the original version for fairly economically. They released a revised edition, which has some different artwork. That is readily available. You're going to pay a little bit more for it, but still not out of the realm of what we recommend. And then there's also a big box version that includes like every expansion and is probably not necessary. There's also a game called New York, which is essentially the exact same game, just rethemed. Instead of a Middle Eastern theme, it's a New York buildings and traffic instead of walls and stuff like that. There's also a card game version of Alhambra and New York, which takes out the tile placement aspect of the game.
Okay.
So if you just want to compete over majority of colors, then the card game would be the way to go on that one. So hopefully that clarifies that. For our recommended game of the week, Alhambra by Queen Games. Let's move on to the School of Gaming.